In this video, I'd like to take a look at the Extrude feature and several of the options available with it. The very first feature I've created is an Extrude, and it's just a plain simple extrude from a single sketch. But let's take a look at some of the options by creating a brand new Extrude feature. We'll use the same original sketch, take a look at these, and take a look at these options in direction 1. First, we can decide the extrusion depth using either a key in or the arrow, or you can do a through all, which will extrude as far as any of the other solids in that direction. Second option is up to next, and it will just go up to the next solid that it encounters. The up to next option will occasionally run into some errors, and I'll show you what those are a little bit later on. Up to vertex allows us to extrude up to a selected vertex, so we can pick that point and the extrusion will go up to that point without using an explicit dimension. Next is up to surface, and it just happens that I've got a surface body in this model, and we can make use of this. So we'll use the extrude again from this sketch, select up to surface, and we can pick that surface. You'll notice it doesn't give us a preview, and if we click the green check, it's going to give us an error. It says the end face cannot terminate the extruded feature. Well, it's not really clear what that means maybe, but if we look at this, we notice that misses this face in this corner. I mentioned earlier that there could be some errors with the up to next end condition, and this is the same thing as that up to next error. So there's two things that we can do here, either extend this face up or pull this sketch back. And let's extend the face. We'll go to the Surfaces tab and then to the Extend Surface, and we'll grab a couple of edges from here and make sure that it completely covers the sketch. And then we will do the same thing again. We'll select the sketch, extrude the feature, tell it that we want to go up to surface, and select that surface. Now this will work for a surface body which has multiple faces in it, but you have to select the body rather than the face. Notice also that you're not getting a flat end on this, you're getting a face that matches the curvature of the surface. So that's a nice option. And next we'll say offset from surface. That's the same exact thing, except in this case, we're going to give it some sort of an offset, and I'll just say 5. And that offset can be either side, this side or that side. The translate surface means that it's going to move the surface rather than doing an offset. You know how in a sketch, if you offset an arc, you get something that's either plus or minus the radius of the arc? Well, it's the same thing on the surface. But if we translate the surface, that means we're just moving the end face. We're not actually offsetting it. So sometimes you want one, sometimes you want the other. This allows you to control how that works. The next option is up to body. You can select any body. We'll select the one that's available here. Mid-plane, we'll just take whatever dimension that you put in and divide it by 2 in each direction, and so it will extrude symmetrically in both directions. This box is for the direction of the extrude. Let's get out of here first and go in here, and we'll draw a line that's at some random angle, and then we'll go back and do this again. Notice sometimes I select the sketch and then the feature. Sometimes I select the feature and then the sketch. It doesn't really matter what order you do that with Solidworks. So here we can tell it we want it to extrude, but we don't want it to extrude straight or perpendicular from the sketch. We want to extrude at an angle. And that angle can be given by an edge, a straight line. Could even be a sketch line in a 3D sketch. Doesn't have to be on a particular plane, but it has to be a straight line. An extrude that's not in a straight line is called a sweep, and we'll talk about that later. Those are these options. Let's get out of here, turn this off, and we'll go to the next option here that we're demonstrating. Also, we can turn off this sketch down at the end. If you haven't made use of the display pane, this is a fantastic tool for turning things on and off. The next feature is still an extrude, but it's just demonstrating a different kind of sketch. This is what we call a nested sketch. So you've got a closed loop on the outside and a closed loop on the inside. And when you extrude that, what you get is a block with a hole in it. Okay, so that's just another way that you can use the sketch to control what the extrude feature is doing. This will keep you from needing to create a separate feature later on. But if you needed to make a pattern of this, you can't make a pattern of that hole because the hole is not a feature. The block is the feature. Just be careful of how you do things. The next one is actually two bodies in one. This is what we call a disjoint sketch because we have a closed loop here and then we have another closed loop that's outside of the first closed loop. Instead of making a hole in the solid, this one makes two separate solid bodies. That's why I had to turn on two of them over here. But this all happened in a single feature. And there's nothing that you have to do inside the feature to make that work. It just works because of the sketch. Next one is an option that's inside the feature. And so let's take a look at that. Edit the feature right from here. And we've still extruded from the sketch plane. There are some other options which we'll look at. And we're just using the blind end condition in direction 1. But what we've done here is we're creating a thin feature. What this does is it takes a closed loop and it gives each line a certain thickness. And you could have that go in direction 1 or direction 2. And there's an option here to cap ends, which would create a hollow box all the way around. So if you have the need to create a hollow box, remember the cap ends option within the thin extrude feature type. Also, once you've created the feature, you cannot change this option. If it's a thin feature and you want to make it a solid feature, you've got to delete it and recreate it. And likewise, if you want to go the other direction. The next one is an open sketch. Open sketches, by definition, are only going to give you a thin walled feature. And you can edit this to tell it what the thickness is that you're trying to create. And all of these can go one direction or the other, and all of them can be direction 1 and direction 2. So you can have a different end condition in direction 2 than you set up for your end condition in direction 1. The merge result option, I'll have to demonstrate that separately. Let's turn on all of these solids and I'll make a new sketch that goes everywhere and then extrude this. And this would be a good place to use the through all end condition because it will just find the furthest solid in that direction and extrude that far. The merge result option does this. If I leave it turned on, and it's on by default, look what it does to the solid bodies. It takes all of the solid bodies and consumes them or joins them into that solid feature. We go back again, we turn that option off, then what happens is all of these solid bodies remain as separate solid bodies. They're just taking up the same space as the new solid body that's bigger than everything else. there are a couple other options I need to show you here. And one of them is the draft feature. We can turn the draft on, and you can draft that direction, or you can make it draft outward. Plus, you can make this extrude a little bit differently. You could make it extrude from a different surface. For example, I could tell it I want to extrude from that face, and then extrude to, wherever, through all in this case. Or you could tell it extrude from a vertex, and you could select a vertex like this one and have it extrude again in a certain direction and dimension. Next is an offset. So we can offset this extrude from the sketch, and you can offset it in the other direction. You can also extrude from an existing surface, plane, or face, but this is kind of an advanced option, and I demonstrate that in a couple of the automobile videos in the surfacing playlist. So just remember that you have a lot of options. Next time you need to set up an extrude or edit an existing extrude to get where you're going from where you are. Thanks for watching.